that's what makes podiatry such a glorious profession. There's a very, very few people who have the opportunities that we have to set their own fees, to set their own working environment, to set your own working hours, to decide what kind of patients you do want to see and don't want to see. Most guys don't get it. And we are so, so lucky. I've said it before, and I'd stick to it. If you're not having fun being a podiatrist, you're doing it wrong. You know, because this is such a great profession. And we are so blessed to be it.
This is the Justin Blake podcast experience for health professionals that mean business. So wherever you are in the world, listen as we discuss everything you need for you and your health business to survive and thrive. Thanks for listening.
Great, I think we're on again. So good. Is it afternoon yet? No, still morning. Oh, it is afternoon.
You're on a different time zone to me. We're well into the afternoon.
I don't even know what day it is. It's because of the whole lockdown. I mean, it's definitely every day is the same. So again, another cracker. They're coming thick and fast today. Today I've got with me David Cashley from the northeast of Scotland in Dundee, and David's podiatrist with a special interest in again foot MSK podiatry, especially neuromas, and is just about to complete his final thesis for his PhD. And apparently, Dave's going to tell us first of all about his the excellent results that the data has thrown up. So welcome, Dave.
Hi, Justin. Thanks for having me. So, we're just in a nutshell with our research, we're just writing up now. It's been pretty slow progress, really. I should have written up a year ago, but we had some tough times here with my young son. He got acute renal failure, so that put everything on hold for a while. But
puts life in perspective.
It does a little. And PhD suddenly seems a little less important. But he's had a transplant. He's been under the care of an absolutely amazing medical team. He's back to work. He's raring to go. So we're back on track. So we're now just writing up our results. And I think I've spoken a few times on various podcasts about it. But in a nutshell, what we did is we took manual therapy and compared it to steroid injection. And the question was, which does better in the short term? Which does better in the long term? Is manual therapy really a valuable tool in this environment? And the unique thing about our study, which is nice, I think, is that most manual therapy studies, if you have a look, do manual therapy and manual therapy and exercise, or manual therapy and medication, or manual therapy and strap, manual therapy and orthotics. It's really quite unusual to have a study that says, okay, let's just look at manual therapy. Let's just look at the manipulation.
So they can keep certain colleagues quiet.
So we did that, and we compared it to steroid injection. And steroid injection in our study behaved exactly like it does in all of the papers that are out there. An initial great result tails off fairly quickly. For a handful of people, actually, in our study, the steroid injection was a great result long term. So by long term, our final follow-up was a year. So people were in the study and followed for a year. And a handful of people actually did really well on the steroid for a year. But the stats tell us that the vast majority did well for the first 3 months. And then they tailed off really quite quickly thereafter. And that's pretty much exactly what we'd all expect. A steroid kind of tied you over till you got on the surgeon's table or whatever, and that's as much as we can expect from it. From the manipulation point of view, what was interesting is that actually at 6 weeks, at our first follow-up at 6 weeks, manipulation was lagging a little behind the steroid. And that was a wee surprise to me, because I thought actually manipulation would have quite a fast uptake. But it was actually lagging a wee bit behind. By 3 months...
Just popped into my head, but how did you standardize the manipulation?
In standardized in what way?
The manipulation in terms of, was it the same therapist who was doing the same technique, or did you applying the same pressure, or so a little bit more into that, because I would be interested in that.
Okay. So the same therapist did the same technique on every. So we only looked at a plantar to dorsal manipulation of the lesser MTPJ on the affected side. Okay, and that's all that was done. So again, you see a lot of studies that say, oh, well, we had a restriction here and there and in the next place, so we manipulated them as well. And we felt, while that's absolutely appropriate in a clinical setting, from a research point of view, we want to know, does this one thing work? You know? And so that's all we did. We didn't manipulate any other restrictions in the foot. We didn't include any of those.
No mid-tarsal, everything else was
absolutely nothing.
Okay.
The MTPJ affected. That was it. You know? And so the lesser MTPJs, nothing else. And nothing on the asymptomatic foot. Okay? No footwear advice, nothing. Okay? So the same therapist did every single treatment. Okay? Treatments were given once a week for 6 weeks, and then that was it. Nothing else.
Okay.
At 3 months, the two groups were looking fairly equal. Manipulation group slightly ahead, actually, by that point, but looking fairly equal.
And was that done on what was the measurement of the?
So we had multiple measures, but our primary outcome measure was a visual analog pain scale. Okay. We also used pressure algometer, which looks at how much pressure the specific joint involved can withstand.
Yeah, they're an interesting bit of kit.
Yeah, a great piece of kit. Really, really simple to use.
Very quite reasonably priced as well.
Well, yeah, I think you can pick them up for about 200 quid, which isn't horrendous for a bit of kit, you know. And the studies show them to be very reliable, very robust, very good data. So fantastic data that came from that small investment, really. And then we used 3 different quality of life questionnaires. And the idea behind them was to allow us to compare our results to previous studies that had used these questionnaires for Morton's neuroma. So they were our key outcomes. The primary outcome was the visual analog pain scale. And that's the one that we decided we would look at most carefully. So from 3 months onwards, we reassessed at 6 months, 9 months, and a year. Okay, and at all of those markers, manipulation way outstripped the steroid injection, to the point where when it comes to a year, the steroid injection group are basically back to where they were to begin with. So absolutely no long-term benefit to be had.
Yes.
The manipulation group, on the other hand, had a significant number, and I mean clinically significant, statistically significant in all ways.
Right across the board.
Yeah, a significant number of pain-free subjects. Mm-hmm. So I'd hate to, and I'd be reluctant to use the word cure or anything like that, but people have been pain-free for a year,
Yeah.
And I think we can reasonably say in a clinical context, if you've got someone who's pain-free for a year, they're fixed, right? That's job done. What we didn't do, and it was
there wasn't any difference between the long-standing 3, 4, 5 year neuromas and the little bit of a little, because that was always the way with patients with neuromas. Was I was always, when they came, if they had that just little twinge at the start and was in their certain shoes that were out dancing in that night, they were okay. But the ones who were coming, it was like constant there, and the barefoot pain and everything else, they were so much harder to treat. And when you scanned them, the neuroma was so much more advanced. Was there any difference then in the pre, the pre to the outcome?
Okay, so we didn't take anybody into the study. We didn't have a long-standing neuroma.
Okay.
But for that reason, really, because it'd be really easy to kind of skew the data towards somebody who had a neuroma for 3 weeks versus somebody who'd had one for 6 months or a year.
Yeah.
So everyone had a long-standing neuroma. So
and did you rule out previous interventions and things, or a lot of them had steroids maybe before, or had some of them had previous interventions before? It's difficult to get a virgin patient
Yeah,
that's why people struggle to do research in their practices, which we'll go into in a bit.
So all of our patients were referred from our local NHS department. Mm-hmm. So that they'd all of them had failed orthotic intervention.
Yeah.
Okay. A handful, I think, had a steroid injection sometime previous. But we had a washout period in the study where we said that you must have had no additional intervention in the past 3 months.
Okay,
so that we discount the idea that that intervention is having any meaningful effect going forward. So everyone had nothing for 3 months.
Yeah.
So whatever we gave them was the only thing that was having the impact. That was the idea.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, I was quite surprised to discover that the manipulation stood the test of time in terms of, being good a year later, and that gives a lot of food for thought as to what's actually causing the neuroma,
Mm-hmm.
because you've clearly physically changed some element of either the foot mechanics or the foot neurology.
What do you think's happening? Well, I mean, because neuroma, the way I looked at it was medial lateral column. You get that shear between the third and the fourth on the, when you break that foot down into the two halves, and that's where that shear is, and you can see that when you stand down in that pronated foot type, where you get the talar shunt and it shifts that medial column forward, and you get the longer three and the shorter fourth and fifth. So you get that sort of foot. So you get that pinch and nipping. Yeah.
So it's possible that it's multifactorial. There's a lot of talk about impingement from the deep transverse metatarsal ligament. I don't buy that. That doesn't make sense to me, because when you scan the foot, the neuromas rarely sit anywhere close to the ligament. So that it doesn't strike me that the impingement from the ligament holds true. And I understand that resecting the ligament gives relief, but that's about opening up space. That's not in any way
give it more space to expand into. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I am inclined to go back to Morton's own original theory that it's a restriction of metatarsal head MTPJ function. I think it's a restriction there that leads to an additional shearing stress, mm-hmm. which we alleviate manually by increasing the available range of motion of the joint.
Yeah.
So that's my gut feeling. I don't think I can be any stronger than say it's a gut feeling. Equally, you could argue that we are stretching the soft tissue, we're stretching the neural tissue. We're creating an entirely different alpha motor.
Yeah, because it is. I mean, is it a tethering and that sort of whole, that like the way I thought about, with the way the nerve travel, it's like the fishing line through the eye, and if you get that sort of tight, you get that tethering, so you get the tension within the whole neural sort of section. Yeah. Is it releasing the tension there then on it, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. And the thing is that the downside of our studies, it doesn't really tell us what we've done. It just tells us that whatever action we took alleviates the pain. It doesn't tell us the mechanism.
No. Okay.
But there's lots of scope to now go and explore that mechanism. So
that's right. When you've got
another doing that for somebody.
And so let's leave there, because so that's it. In practice, it is difficult then to recruit the patient numbers in to do research. That's why there's not a lot of research.
It's really, really tough.
Because we talked a couple of years ago about Sligo, and I talked about heel pain and the number of patients that we had and the great results that we were getting with manual therapy. And but it is that numbers and all those variables that if you were to go to a peer-reviewed publication, there's certain colleagues who are going to be, well, you didn't have this and didn't have that and didn't have this and your section, and there's so much. So it's very involved. I mean, it is
obviously we tried to cover as many bases as we possibly could, obviously, but at the same time, try and remain a pragmatic study, because I think that's important. Because to me, there's absolutely, well, I know there isn't absolutely no point, but there's very little point in doing a study that clinicians can't replicate. You know, because what does that add? You know, so we need to be in a position where we say, look, you can take this to clinic on Monday and make a difference. That's the goal for me, and that's the kind of research that's valuable. So that's what we really try to do.
That was any conference or course that you go on. You want to actually have something on Monday morning and just do, and you get results.
Yeah. So a lot of that was, and that's why, for example, we didn't manipulate other parts of the foot, etc. Because what we can now say is this one remarkably simple manipulation will help your neuroma patients. Do this, start Monday, push on. You know? And so we wanted to make it as pragmatic as possible. But the challenge with that is covering enough of those scientific bases to say, okay, this is still a fairly watertight study. And that is a big challenge, you know, because, you know, you'd ask questions about, for example, we decided not to ultrasound our patients because most podiatrists don't have access to ultrasound. And of course, then the immediate challenge will be, well, how did you know you even had a neuroma? You know? And, you know, there are things that you're going to have to defend when those questions come. And our answer to that, obviously, is that, well, there are a number of papers out there that have shown that clinical tests are every bit as sensitive and, in fact, more sensitive than radiographic tests. That's right. You know, our ultrasound machine gives us 20% false positives and 17% false negatives. You know, so that's a pretty poor number, really. So, from our point of view, the way a neuroma behaves and the way it presents clinically kind of played into our hands and allowed us to do a pragmatic study. So, but it needs defending. And that's always going to be the challenge for sure.
Yes. And then let's sort of change that completely, because you say every podcast you're on, everybody, at this, I think you were sort of saying, the research, this publication of this and prevention of it is going to be, is imminent. So let's just track back to the just explain about the tester, the pressure tester for the joint that's 200 quid.
Okay, so this is...
And he goes, it's not that cheap, 200 quid. So let's get on to practices on money and business and why somebody would think 200 quid isn't cheap.
Okay.
Or it is too cheap.
200 quid to give your patient a physical readout that says, look, this is how much pressure your joint could withstand last week. Yeah. This is what you managed this week. You felt the difference. Here's the number. This is black and white. If you can say, so I'll say to my patients, for example, with a neuroma, right at the outset, I'll say, look, normally this joint could withstand 5.5 kilograms of pressure before you register any discomfort. Okay? Then we know that it's functioning well. It's taking its share of the load across that parabola. We'll apply it. They'll get, 1.2 kilograms before they get to pain. At week 2, they'll get, 1.8 kilograms. At week 3, they'll get 2.7 kilograms. They can see a very definite progress, and it's black and white. It's it's a hard outcome measure. So it's something that the patient can believe in very easily. And if you can buy your patient something to believe in for 200 quid, that's less than a pair of narcotics.
200 quid isn't that, because, I've all in clinics, even just something simple as a glucose tester, digital tester for your diabetic patients that come in is 40 or 50 quid or 30 or 40 quid. And we used to use a very small, and of course they're de rigueur now for testing temperatures, a little laser temperature tester for diabetic feet. I got one years ago. It's a fantastic little bit of kit just to push it and get the temperature off it. That was 40 or 50 quid. So people sometimes balk at that's no use putting that there. People sometimes balk at that, and that's what the discussions have all been over the last number of weeks in terms of justifying fees and practices and people worrying about increasing prices. And the thing is, from my point of view, ethically, you've got to charge more because then you can afford the kit, which better serves your patients.
Yeah. I've got to say, I've struggled for a long time to really get my head around why we've got such a block as a profession.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what is it in us that decides our patients are skinflints? You know, what is it in us that decides our patients don't want to invest in their health?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't have the right to make those decisions for our patients. You know, so from my point of view,
years ago, Ray Anthony, one of the first lectures went with biomechanics and wasn't the summer school. And as soon as you become your patient's bank manager, you start judging what they can afford. Then
it's not your job. It's not your job. I can remember when I first started, I had a problematic, a young child who had been brain damaged. And his parents had been everywhere. And they'd said, look, can you help? And I thought, well, no, probably not. But I don't want to say no because you're in such a desperate position, you know? And I looked at him and I thought, you've obviously spent a huge amount of money taking this young kid everywhere. I don't think I can do anything, but I'm happy to try. So I said to them, look, I'm going to see you. I'll give it my best shot. I'll leave that on the line, basically. You know, I'm not convinced I can do anything, but we'll do what we can. We'll try sprints, we'll try orthotics, we'll try manipulation, exercises, right? Mm-hmm. And then I said to them, but I can see that this has been a big issue for you and you're ongoing, so I'm going to treat you for free, which they were very grateful. And I gave this guy maybe 12 sessions over a number of weeks. And then on one occasion, we left the clinic together. And I jumped onto my push bike and they jumped in their brand new Lexus that cost them 95 grand. And I'm thinking, who's the idiot, you know? Because they could have paid my bill and never thought a second thing about it. You know, and what my bill would have been at that time would have been next to free anyway, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've done them no service and I've done me a big disservice from my own preconceived ideas, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just daft. Just work out how much you want to earn, how hard you want to work, and charge the appropriate fee and move on and stop sweating over it. You know, it's not a big deal, and we're turning it into a big deal, but it really isn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. Once you get over that mindset, it's just a completely different thing. I say change from that scarcity mentality to worry and fear of like, oh, I can't charge, to the abundance, you know, gives you so much more freedom to do what you want to do for yourself and for your family and for your patients. It's such a better, come over here and join me. It's great over here in the land of abundance, not in the land of scarcity and worry. I'm frightened and that I'm going to piss off my current patients and I'm going to, you know, it's just, you know, it's so much better place to be in, really.
Yeah, for sure. And I think when you free yourself up from that and you start to look at the various options for you as a private practitioner to specialize and to develop yourself and to develop your staff and to have a genuinely wonderful work environment, you know, there's no looking back once you've done that. And that's what makes podiatry such a glorious profession. There's very, very few people who have the opportunities that we have to set their own fees, to set their own working environment, to set your own working hours, to decide what kind of patients you do want to see and don't want to see. Most guys don't get it. And we're so, so lucky. I've said it before and I'd stick to it. If you're not having fun being a podiatrist, you're doing it wrong. You know, because this is such a great profession. You know, we are so blessed to be in it.
You know, we've both been lucky enough that it's given us a great and absolutely fantastic journey. You know, through this. You know, I always say, you know, the smarter guys at school than me are all now pharmacists and different things. I would think I'd be bored out of my mind counting out pills.
Yeah.
Or and again, being at the, you know, the as you say, happen to, and we can serve the public, but we can structure it in a certain way.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the fact that we're so lucky. This is where I'm going to hijack your podcast, Justin, okay? Because there's a lot of people out there who are not lucky.
Yes.
they have a tough time. And we've got a great charity running in podiatry.
Yes.
Yeah, an amazing bunch of guys. And from the ones I've met, Debbie Monk, Belinda Longhurst, Jonathan Small, they're working so hard to make this a charity that takes people who are in a desperate situation, who quite often don't even have footwear that's going to protect the feet through the British summer, never mind the British winter. So because we are so lucky and we have that potential patient group there, myself and a group of cycling podiatrists are going to take ourselves from Land's End to John O'Groats.
Okay.
We're going to cycle it. I'd like to say non-stop, but there might be a few hostelries and taverns visited on the way. Okay.
In the reopen again.
Yeah, but it's a 900-mile cycle.
Yeah.
And I'm going to stick my neck out and I'm going to say we're going to raise 50 grand for Forgotten Feet. Okay. And
just tell people a little bit more about what Forgotten Feet what Forgotten Feet do for people at the moment.
Okay, so already there are clinics set up all across the nation. Okay?
Yes.
And the idea is that they've taken podiatry services out of the clinical environment and taken it to the users of the service. Okay, so it means that those people who are sleeping rough, who don't have access to regular clinical services, have a service going out to them to meet their need. So they'll do their routine foot care, they'll take care of their serious wounds, they'll get appropriate medical care.
And is this sort of spun out of sort of the crisis at Christmas that's been running in London and stuff for a number of years? Or
so that's something I don't know enough about. And in fact, the three folk that I just mentioned earlier are probably going to be great guests to get on and have a podcast and chat to them about the journey of Forgotten Feet and where it's going. Because, I'm not a part of that organisation. I just see it as such a valuable tool that we need to support it as a profession. And that's really why I want to talk to you guys about it, because at the minute, like I said, we've got 56 people who are starting to train with us and cycle, and we're going to spend a year just beasting ourselves over stupid miles just to get fit enough to do what's called lay jog, Land's End to John O'Groats. Okay, we're going to do all that, and we want to do that and make it meaningful. Mm-hmm. And the only way we're going to make it meaningful is if we get the whole podiatry profession on board. Okay. Yes. So we want you guys who are maybe not cycling with us. First of all, if you are a cyclist and you haven't seen the group, send a message. If you want to cycle it with us, that would be absolutely fantastic. The more the merrier. We've got support vehicles going. We've got experienced cyclists. We've got novice cyclists. We've got the whole shooting match. So if you want to get involved, come and join us.
There's a good scope for everybody. And of course, this is going to promote this. This is going to raise more awareness within the profession as well of Forgotten Feet.
Well, my hope is that it will raise the profile of Forgotten Feet, but it also raise the profile of podiatry.
Podiatry, yes.
And that's in everybody's interests. So we're going to get out and talk to the local radio stations as we're passing through their area. We're going to talk to the local charities as we're passing through to see if they could use the service. We're going to make a point of making those contacts all along the 900-mile route. Mm-hmm. What we need you guys to do is to get behind us. We need you to get your hands in your pockets and save a limb. Okay? We know we do it in our clinics every day, but let's encourage your patients to give a little. Let's put posters up in your waiting room. Let's put a bucket in your waiting room. Let's get that cash coming in and make a significant difference. Because if you think about this patient group, they're a real at-risk group. So when things go badly wrong for them, it's horrific for them. But you know what? It's expensive for you because that comes out of the health budget. And we can stop that. And we can make a huge difference as podiatrists being frontline and early. So I'm going to ask every podiatrist in the country to get their hand in their pocket.
Yeah, there might be other minds, again, as you say, which we certainly will be, reaching out to them and getting them on and developing with this, because I know there's a lot of work done in the Simon community in Ireland for these type of projects and things as well. And and then of course from next year, and I already said to you, after you've done the London and Dublin growth, to be able to do the Nissen to Malin in Ireland.
Absolutely.
It's a lot shorter. Friends who are physiocyclists and stuff before, I think it's a 3-day run, 4 day run, so that will be the next do the London the Malin.
Justin, I'll do it if you'll do it. Okay.
I'll do it if you do it. I'll drive the support vehicle.
No. You don't get off.
I'll meet you there. I'll meet you there.
I've got
my friend Richie's watching, and he wants to go to the Lions tour in South Africa. I'll meet you out there. I don't want to have to the whole hassle and stuff with it. And it's definitely, because there's a lot of people who are possibly doing those things, had been doing those things individually themselves in the local community before, we already did sort of, practices doing sort of sock drives and shoes and footwear and things like that. But to have it all sort of brought under one banner and then actually promote it as well, as you say, will be great for Forgotten Feet, but also the rise of for the profession as well.
Absolutely, I think it's a great opportunity for the profession to showcase itself. But we need to all get behind it. We need to all push. And so that's my beg to you all now: is get behind us and push. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you'll be getting behind me. You'll be getting behind me and pushing on the bike.
I once saw, McCain oven chips. Well, in John McCain's office, there's a big mural on his wall before he died, which says, "Get thee behind me, Satan," and push. And that's always stuck with me. I think it's such a beautiful phrase, and it's. So we're going to hijack that. Is get thee behind me, podiatry, and push. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it's just a great. And then if all of us give a little, we make a huge difference. And it really is limb saving, and in some cases life saving.
Yeah, because that's and again we need this increase in the accessibility to the service, but we need to increase in the profile of podiatry, because with Jonathan Small earlier this morning, there's a major problem of recruiting new graduate people in to start the courses. And so what is it that podiatry doesn't have or isn't attracting people in to want to come into the profession? What do you think that's with? Is it because it's just feet? And how can you work with feet? It can't be that.
No.
What is?
So for me, I think this is where I get myself struck off now.
Yeah, go ahead. I got myself in trouble last week.
I heard. So I think the move towards apprenticeships is a massive retrograde step and a bad idea.
Okay.
I think
lay that out for everybody.
Say that again.
Lay that out for everybody who doesn't know what.
So it seems pretty much the idea is what we're, in my head, diluting the academic route and making this more a kind of day release course.
Right.
To me, that says hairdresser, joiner, sparky. It doesn't say medical professional.
Okay.
And I think, given the difficulty in attracting people, we need to be going exactly the other way, the way the dentists did, the way the chiropractors did. And you go 5 years, taught doctorate. Yes. Suddenly you become sexy overnight.
Yes. But with or the year in clinical practice being supervised and being trained through that as well. Because that's always the thing that I have is, you can strike me off now. I'm not. I'm okay. I'm still a member. The course I think is taught arse about face to start with. In terms of biomechanics, is taught at the end. It's just sort of lumped on. I think that should be at the start and things. The the syllabus is the same as the syllabus was when I trained. So in 1989 I started, which is the same syllabus there. And the syllabus, it has modified and obviously altered, but it's to prepare people to come out and work in the health service and to be able to treat 20, 30 patients a day, high volume clinic, and that was what it was designed for. And I'm sorry if we're going to piss off some academic colleagues. I've been told not everybody wants to go into private practice, Justin. We only can do that because our hands are tied with the syllabus. We've got this, and there are benchmarks and stuff to sort of change that they have to hit. And again, you have to do it across the 15 schools and Ireland and stuff as well. You have to have it has to be the same. So I'm sure that to get the consensus to make alterations is going to be quite difficult. But obviously, there must be a consensus to change it to their apprenticeship model. I wasn't aware of that those sort of changes were happening. So why can't you, as you say, change it the other way and have maybe a year mentored clinical practice? Because that was one of the things, I'm sure you've had them as well. What was one of the great things about the podiatry school in Galway was the students that came, you were able to, you were able to show them what real life was like, and hopefully they took a lot of things from it as well. But you need that clinical practice to see, and it gives you a taster of what is possible.
Yeah, no, I think two things that are key there is that when we trained, the NHS was the focus, and I get that. And most people went to NHS, even those who went to private practice also went to NHS. Now, over 50% of us are private practitioners. So the majority of us are private practitioners. And so the training has to begin to reflect that. So personally, I'd like to see some business element coming into the training, but I know it's difficult for the schools. They can only, there's a limit to what they can teach, and I accept that. They're only there for so long, and they're starting from scratch, and I get that. But I do think the taught doctorate as a standard qualification would make us a much sexier profession overnight. If you were going to do physio, maybe podiatry, or maybe occupational health, and you're thinking about all those chosen caring professions, and you think, coming out with a doctorate would be, it's a feather in your cap. I think that would put us ahead of the game.
Because I think there is a little bit more churn, or the people who take the podiatry degree now and then don't go on then to have the 20, 30-year career that we have. And I'm sure that's in the other professions, but I think it's slightly higher. And I know that there have been groups where that's a way into, like, slightly lesser entry level in, get the degree and then flip that into retrain, do the 2-3 year add-on for dentistry or something at the back of that, or completely change out of the medical field. So, yeah, and, but it's worrying. It's the way it's set up.
But anything. Because
you want those guys who are coming out now to have the career that we've had, to have that 20, 30 years and to be able to. Yeah. And it's given us so much varied practice.
And anything we can do to raise the profession's profile is got to be beneficial. So that's why I'm going to drag you all the way back into my cycle, okay? Because I'm really going to push that absolutely relentlessly now.
Yes.
That's good. Anytime you see me, this is what I'm going to be talking about. So you're going to start crossing the road.
More research. You can read the paper when it comes out. That's what it's going to be. Yeah, read the research when it's come out. Dave's new gig is Forgotten Feet. Yeah. And of course, I've done work with Special Olympics before, and there's a really good, Fit Feet program in Special Olympics, which has been running for years. And that's it's very well supported by the profession as well. But local events, national events, and international events as well. And I think that has been very, very good at raising the profile of podiatry as well. We've got the dentists, we've got the opticians, and they've got the diet stuff, and then they've got the fit feet sort of section as well. So it has really been again, it's raised the profile. I'm not too sure whether a huge amount of people are hugely aware of that as well. But let's focus back on the Forgotten Feet.
Absolutely. So
Olympics.
I tell you how guys can help us right now. Yeah. Right now you can help us by putting us in touch with companies who are going to sponsor us. Okay. Uh-huh. So who are willing to sponsor the whole event, whether that be some orthotics companies, DLT, Firefly, Scott Shand up in Aberdeen there. I will be tapping him later, so I kind of hope he's not watching, actually, so I don't want him to be...
start dodging your calls.
Yeah, so...
Yeah.
But yeah, if you know any company who might sponsor us, any company who might help us in any way, then please send me a message. Make our inroad into these companies a little bit smoother by giving us an introduction, giving us.
Are you going to be the named contact person, or is it going to be Forgotten Feet and the committee, or
So for the cycle, it will be myself.
Okay,
so
right.
They'll feed any information back into me. Okay, then that would be really helpful. So that's what we're looking for people to do for us right now. Is find those contacts and let us get into those companies that just might give us a little nudge in the right direction.
Yes.
That would be brilliant. We've got a few support drivers already ready and willing with their camper vans and vans. If you want to add your name to that, again, get in touch. Even if you can only do, say, 1 day or 2 days, then that makes life a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
Just as you know, in case you're wondering, well, is it going to be anywhere close to me? What we're going to do is we're obviously going to start off in that southwest corner. We're going to come right up the border into Wales. So we're going to be up the border in the Welsh side, up past Liverpool, Manchester, through the Lake District. Then we're going to sweep east, and we're going to do the east coast of Scotland, past Edinburgh, through Fife, up through Tayside, into the Cairngorms National Park, swing over into Inverness, and then up through that. So if you're...
What do you expect the running time to be? Because it isn't going to be a straight through. It is going to be a staged...
Just a straight 48 hours, Justin.
Yeah, right. Well, no, this is great because, with the podcasts and stuff that I'm doing now, this is going to get a mention. This is going around the world. We're with Tom Novella this evening in New York. We get exposure there. There's lots of orthotics companies. It's going to be
absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So it's going to be 9 days. 9 days. Okay. So we do 100 miles a day. Okay, and we'll finish it in 9 days. So it's a fairly hefty ride. So.
Yeah.
So if we can get those guys from anywhere in the world really to get on board, that would absolutely be fabulous.
And we've had questions in already from New Zealand for this evening, South Africa, Ireland, UK. So we're the people will hear about this, and then they will.
Fantastic.
That will make a big difference. That will make a big difference. And as you say, orthotic, companies, any supply.
Yeah, anyone and everyone. But I think it's a bold target. 50 grand's a big number, and I've got that out on air now. So I can't afford you guys.
If you want to run the London Marathon or go to the New York Marathon and run it for Macmillan or run it for anybody else like that, you've got to you've got to raise a certain amount of money to get your space on the so that's certainly doable. I'd be worried if the amount of training, the amount of hours we're going to have to do on the bike to be able to do it. That would be my concern.
There's going to be a fair bit of saddle soreness, I think, kicking around, but it's a small price to pay.
I'll help out with the advice of the bike setup and the pedal interfaces and different things. I used to do a lot of that bike setup and fit and things.
You're all hard, Justin. You're all hard. Get your Lycra on, man.
Get your Lycra on. You haven't seen me in Lycra. It's shocking. As long as you're behind me like the devil pushing me, Dave. My brother-in-law did one of the taps in the Pyrenees. I think we called the Telegraph a few years ago. He's done the various. He said when a guy passed him on a unicycle, he knew he hadn't done enough training. Yeah, he hadn't done enough training. That's when you need to start to worry, because those climbs are sort of like.
I had a guy recently. I did a half marathon up at Inverness, and I'm plodding along, and this, not to be unkind, but just a sack of tatties in lycra running shorts, and they were iron brew running shorts. So that means that they were bright orange with white stripes. Now, white lycra is just a no-no at the best of times, but white lycra on a 20-stone man is never okay. Right? And I just thought, I could hear him puffing and panting, and I thought to myself, man, you should not be doing this. You're in a bad way. This is not clever. We're going to have to get an ambulance. And then I think, Dave, he's ahead of you. Get a grip of yourself. And at that point, I realised I'm not a runner. Get back on the bike. So it was a tough lesson. A tough lesson.
And well, that's fantastic, Dave. That's really good. No, definitely, we'll get a lot of exposure for that. Now I know about that. We'll be able to, to talk to everybody.
Good. And do make sure you get the Forgotten Fate crew onto your show and give the whole story.
Okay. Just DM me now, and we'll get that set up over the next week or two.
Yeah.
And let's start to really sort of get the news out there. Because with social media now and everything like that, it is so much easier to do that now. And again, internationally as well.
Brilliant. So that's much more interesting than neuromas anyway, man.
Yeah, cyclists with neuromas. We're always in that tight-fitting carbon foot. Well, let's get back to neuromas. Yeah, it was always like a struggle, because they always like that feel of it, the tight carbon plate and stuff. Yeah. So that was always a tricky to. I have all for the patients and problems, and triathletes especially. Yeah, tell me all about this foot problem. And this is the conversation. Yeah, usually about 135 miles, they start to get this little sort of. Yeah, I start to get this sort of like little sort of discomfort in my forefoot. I'm like, really? 135 miles?
134. That's
what I was. Just 130. That was the first thing out of my mouth. That type of crazy stuff is cyclists put in a lot of mileage. But shoes are definitely a big sort of factor there. And you used to fiddle around with met domes and sort of things inside shoes, because obviously the force goes right down through there.
Yeah.
And I say a little bit of tweaking on between the canting the cleat slightly to change the alignment of the knee and stuff as well.
Just messing around with the position makes it. So
just say that again, because I just lost you there 1 second.
Okay, so just altering the cleat position and the cleat incline can make a massive difference to how the foot feels, And there's some great shoes to allow you to do that. The specialized shoe comes with some nice little wedges that you can alter the position with nicely, which is a real bonus. So lots of great innovations in shoe and pedal manufacture recently, which...
this is 20 years ago. I was loosening off and putting in like pennies and stuff to try and just alter the alignment and things. And but of course that's a whole other discussion in terms of 3D printed footwear and stuff now, and what should be able to be combined in that as sort of times to come. And again, that was another string to the bow. That was really interesting stuff to work in. Podiatry gives you that scope of practice.
Yeah, it does.
Around the cyclists, around the skiers, and you have to work with dancers and all those sort of things. It's all out there. You just got to go.
Yeah, there's loads of work on offer. All of those professional cycling teams are keen to know how we tweak these mechanics and improve things. We here have the Scottish Contemporary Dance School. Those athletes are so in tune with their body, and they want absolutely everything to be spot on. They're regulars at our clinic. We have world champion Highland dancers. So many weird and wonderful things. We've got the obvious kind of our professional football teams. We've worked with them, you know. So there's loads of scope in podiatry to do just exactly what you want to do with the kind of people you want to do it with, you know.
Yeah, as you said earlier, it's just the way you want. You know, it's all. You can structure it yourself. Who do you want to work with? What do you want to do? What direction do you want to take it? So you know, gives you that interest, and that's it. It's always been that. What's next, and how can we apply this to across all the things? And as you say, back to the cyclists, they're looking for the 1%. So we talked about that with Ty David. We're getting it on again. They're looking for that 1% on the nutrition, on the fitness, on the rehab, the recovery. That's they're you know, if you can give that to them, yeah, it's you know, and working with those guys, it can be extremely challenging. And because they're so driven as well. Yeah, they're so driven as well.
Yeah, and you've got to be signed into that. You know, you've got to understand that this guy's going to do whatever it takes to get that. You know, on the bike, if he gets 100th of a second on a track bike, that's the difference between gold and silver.
Yeah.
You know? So he's going to do it. He's going to try it.
Oh no, I remember. Because even the weekend warrior is out there, and he's on a static bike, and he's got his power outputs and wattages and stuff. And if you can put a little wedge or a little tweak in his cleat, and he can see it on the screen the next time he's on the bike, you know, that's what they're looking for. Yeah. You know, that's what
that right there is a patient for life.
Mm.
You know, the minute you've improved his performance, you know. And it's not difficult. It's not difficult. It's fairly standard mechanics, you know, and we can all do that.
Yeah, I must dig out that there's a Jatma paper somewhere around the 90s. I have it somewhere, and it was just that setup, simple bike setup. Look at the knee position over center of what do you call it? What's the bloody thing in the middle of the spindle in the pedal or whatever it was, and just adjust the knee position and slightly tweaking the seat back and forward, and just how you need to set up. And obviously it's got a lot more advanced now, where it's like you put you on the bike and the computer got you and stuff. But again, sometimes that's a bit of a cookie cutter thing, because it's like they have a pre-programmed what the setup should be. And you can be in a certain position on the bike. And that's where I used to work with physios and chiros and stuff, because you had to you know, I've got chiros who work with treat the horses, and they treat the horse, but then they treat the person as well, because you adjust the horse and you need to adjust the person, because, you know, there's no point having that automatic bike setup when the computer says this. If you're in a position you can't access your range of motion in there, it just doesn't work for you. So again, that's where the art and the science sort of comes into.
And they've got to make. It's a bit like with the shoe running shops that have absolutely fantastic gait analysis kit being interpreted by the Saturday boy. You know, you've got the good kit is great. You've got to have the experience to back it up as well. I mean,
Yeah, and it's and that's it. And again, people are expecting this, because, well, if the shoe shop has got the gait analysis and the foot pressure plate in, and you know your supposedly tip-top podiatry clinic hasn't, but I got away from the stuff that went bing and the flashing lights and the paper. We sort of stripped it all back in the last few years of practice, because I thought when you had all the kit, that was it made you a better practitioner, but it didn't really. I came back to how you talk to people and how you communicate with them, and the overall experience that they have with you. You know, and people would come expecting it, but it's like, well, why do you want that? Oh, well, a mate down the running club said I had to get this done, and, you know, you sure I can get it here in the running shop, and the thing. But, you know, but again, it's a perception of what it is. But I found, you know, when again, meeting them where they were, but explaining education about what they need, you know. And you can't make a 3D orthotic out of a 2D scan, or walking over a mat. I don't care what you say. Whoever's listening out there in the orthotic world, and what the software does, and it will do whatever, doesn't work. You can't do it. And they can't strike me out. Can you? You can't.
It's something I know nothing about. But I do know that the whole patient path is what counts, you know. And you can have every gizmo in the world, if you don't click into that patient psyche, if you don't have the understanding of patientology, knowing what makes the patient click, knowing what makes the patient want to comply to the treatment regime, or, if you can't make those connections, join those dots, it doesn't matter what kit you've got.
No.
And in actual fact, quite often you think some of the high-tech kit puts a barrier between me and the patient. And that can sometimes be counterproductive. For all that it's helpful, it means I'm looking at this screen instead of this patient, and I'm looking at this condition instead of this person, and that can be unhelpful. So it's not always the best thing to have the...
it's in there, it's just a tappy, and he didn't really look at me, and he was just putting the information in, and there wasn't really that whole relationship. It was sort of, filtered slightly, so it's, all the gear, no idea.
That's me on the bike.
Being fishing. If Richie's still watching, he'll tell me about my fishing. His brother Charlie, he always tells me that, the spot is that the 20% of fishermen catch the 80% of fish. He does have the big fish to back it up. And but some people just think and that sometimes is the thing. If I get that scanner, if I get the thing that goes bleep, if I get this, that's what's gonna make my practice. It's not. It doesn't work that way. You make a practice. The practice is you, and the and also I think that course is going to make me that. That course is going to change my practice around. If I get this bit of paper, it isn't. It's necessary. Unless it's a manipulation course, in which case it's going to revolutionize everything you've ever thought. Yes. No, you're dead right. Watch this space, because those are going to be coming soon. We're definitely going to run with that with manipulation. So when we're allowed to open back up, we're going to be in Dublin and Ireland to start off with, and then who knows where else. So and we're having the research now that we can actually use to show the efficacy of what you and I and a lot of others more leading than ours. I'm only standing on the shoulders of giants that have gone before me. That will be so much. That's been great, Dave. So the next time we'll be talking to you is probably going to be Dr. Dave then. Well, maybe if I get my finger out and get it done. Hopefully the next time you're going to talk to me, I'm going to be sat on a saddle somewhere around about Bristol, screaming at you to get money in a bucket. Yeah, that's what it's going to be. No, I'll talk to you before then. So I'll talk to you before then. So Dave, and so how can people find out more about you? Well, we're talking on the Forgotten Feet. You can touch on the Forgotten Feet, and again, those details will. So just go again with that for just somebody who missed it or is going to be coming in now. How can they contact you directly? So the easiest way to get me is just to private message me on Facebook. And whether that's about manipulation, whether that's about the charity ride for Forgotten Feet, you need to get involved, or whatever it is, that's probably the most straightforward way to get me. Look me up on Facebook, send me a private message, and we can go from there. Yeah. Great. That's fantastic. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, pleasure's all mine as always, Justin. We'll talk soon. I'll dust the bike off. Take care of yourself. Speak soon.